What is going on, everybody? How is everybody doing? Welcome back here today to another episode of the Just Ballin' Podcast. It's going to be a little bit of a different one, something I haven't really done yet. I know I've mentioned on the YouTube community tab that I'll be doing a mailbag, but I've never really sat down and had a chance to fully do one. So I did take 10 questions from you guys over on the YouTube community tab. And yeah, there's a couple NBA draft ones, couple of just NBA team related, and also some life ones that we'll get into at the end, some personal ones. And if you guys want to be featured in the next one, just make sure you're subscribed on YouTube, or maybe I'll ask you guys on like Instagram or Twitter for some of these. So I'm excited to dive into this. And I guess also, like, we had the NBA Finals last night from when I'm recording this, and the Thunder won game number 5. It was an entertaining game, and I just got to say, the Pacers just don't quit. Every time the Thunder are up by like 14, 15, you kind of just look away for a second, or just anytime that happens, the Pacers are down by 6 all of a sudden. They're down by 5. And we know that Halliburton has this calf strain, which is pretty serious. Shams just actually like reported that he's gonna go under an MRI, and I know he wants to play game 6 and he feels like he has to play game 6, but man, what if he physically can't play game 6? And that's just a shame, given everything that's kind of happened with the Pacers this year and how special this run. And after game 1, or even after game 3, the Pacers were 2 games away from winning the NBA Finals, and now they're down 3-2. They are home for game 6, which is going to be in their favor, but I don't know. This Thunder defense is incredible. J-Dub just had 40 points in game number 5, and I know the Pacers have a deep team, and third quarter TJ McConnell was an exceptional player. It's just going to be tough to suffer that blow of Halliburton, even know how bad he was in game 5, because he is playing injured at the moment. So it does feel like OKC has this somewhat wrapped up. I wonder if I actually looked up the odds of the NBA Finals, because I feel like at this point it's got to be like minus 1,000 for the. No, that might be high. Wow, no, it's minus 1,600 right now for the Thunder to win it all, plus 900 for the Pacers. So, yeah, it's probably the widest it's been since the start of the series, and it does feel like the Thunder are going to win in 6, especially if Halliburton is out. But hey, if they could force a game 7, anything can happen. And I do hope we get a game 7, because I want the most entertaining series as possible. So I'm going to start out with the first question. It's going to come from Mitchell Fishman. And they mentioned that any ideas on how to improve the lottery system to make it more fair for the lesser talented teams. Perhaps splitting the lottery into sections where bottom 5 teams are put into a lottery and can't get a worse pick than 5. And then the 6 to 10 worst teams have lotteries for picks 6 to 10, or maybe adopting MLB system where picks get demoted after consecutive years. This is a very interesting topic that obviously hasn't been talked about a little bit as of late, but every year near the lottery, this is going to be brought up for sure, just because since they changed the lottery odds after the Sam Hinkie trust the process tanking Sixers, no team that finished with the worst record has gotten the number 1 pick. If I can remember exactly, the Knicks were the first team with this implemented in 2019, and they dropped from 1 to 3. In 2020, the Warriors dropped from 1 to 2. In 2021, I believe it was the Rockets who dropped to 1 to 2. I could be wrong on who was the worst team that year. In 2022, I believe it was the Pistons who dropped 1 to 5. 2023, it was also the Pistons who dropped 1 to 5. And then 2024, was it the Pistons who dropped? I feel like the Pistons were not the worst team in the NBA 3 straight years. But honestly, I could be remembering it like that, because in 2022, no, the Rockets, had the worst record in 2022. They ended up dropping 1 to 3. Then let me just make sure I knew who had the worst record in 2021, because I think it was Houston. Yeah, Houston went 17-55 in 2021. 2023, the Pistons had the worst record, went to 5. Same thing in 24. And in 2025, the Jazz had the worst record, and they ended up dropping to pick 5. So clearly there's not a lot of luck that goes into being the worst team in the NBA. We've seen teams like the Mavericks, the Hawks, the Pelicans, the Grizzlies shoot up from outside the top 5 and land the top 2 picks in the NBA draft. And this year, Cooper Flagg is going to the Dallas Mavericks, a team that could have made the playoffs if they won one more play-in tournament game against the Memphis Grizzlies. So I kind of like the idea of putting these teams into buckets, but now, like, how are you going to just do a solidified like top 5 worst teams get in, or do they have to be under a certain win total? Because what if like teams 5 and 6 are separated by 1 win? And I mean, this year, if you looked at those teams, that was pretty much, I think, like the Nets and the Sixers. They went 26 and 24, but then the next team was the Raptors with 30 wins, and there's a 4-game difference, but the Nets would have been in tier 2 with the 6 to 10. So it's kind of tough if they're separated by that much, but I don't hate the idea. Like, if that was a thing, I'd be like, all right, we're complicating this a ton, but I don't hate it. And I do kind of like what the MLB does. It does get a little it's weird too because MLB is also a draft where you get the number one overall pick. You're not guaranteed a stud by any means. We've seen Henry Davis, Mark Appel, Brady Aiken, Mickey Moniak. A lot of busts have come with the number one overall pick in the MLB draft. Where in the NBA, if you're getting the number one pick, you're most likely getting a really good player. There hasn't been like a big bust at number one since like Anthony Bennett. Like Aiden obviously hasn't lived up to the hype, and Luka went 2 picks later, but still was a fine player in this league and helped the Suns go to a finals in 21. For what the MLB does, if you're in the bottom 5, or it could be the bottom 10 for 2 straight years, you're automatically, I think it's bottom 5, you're automatically put at 10 and 11 the following year. The MLB draft is different as well because it's in the regular season, given where the college season ends. So like, for example, the Rockies are at 10 for next year's draft in 26. The Nationals would be at 11 and the Angels would be at 12. And I believe the Cardinals can't be in the top as well, just because of where they've been in previous years. You could do that. Like you might be like, all right, this could now be an incentive for the Hornets or the Wizards or the Jazz not to tank, or the Pistons before going into this year. If you've been in the top 5 for a couple years in a row, you're not allowed to be in it. I don't really know if there's a true fix. I think it's just like bettering the odds for some of the worst teams. I think they went too extreme with it, where it was like 25% for the number one team back in 2018. And now that team just gets a 14% chance to go up to number one. So maybe there's a way you can even this out. And maybe Dallas, who had a 1.8% chance, moved up to number one. Maybe there's a different way where you can have more runnings of it, so it really evens out. Maybe you're doing 100 different entries rather than just the one, where you can now have the odds matter a little bit more. So I would not be opposed to some change. I do feel like Cooper Flagg could be way more of a difference maker in Utah, Washington, or Charlotte for where these teams are headed right now. But I also don't hate the idea of tanking not being encouraged in the NBA. And I'm okay with it at the end of the day. These teams that are going to be tanking are never going to not tank because of these odds, because they're always going to play the what if game throughout the regular season. When the Jazz were tanking and they got penalized for it, and we've seen teams in the past get fined for quote unquote tanking and sitting players. The Mavericks back in 2023, when they got lively and they kind of like basically tanked to get out of the playing tournament, they get penalized, but you're always playing the what if game. You're like, okay, we could do this, and what if we do get the number one pick? So I don't know. I don't think the NBA is going to change anything this offseason. Maybe we need to see this again. But I do think we got the closest to a potential lottery change because of this year's fiasco with Dallas getting number one. Next thing comes from user here, and they mentioned that, or they asked that, who will be the surprise of the draft and who gets traded next outside of Kevin Durant? So I guess like more in like the surprise of the draft, maybe somebody going way higher than expectations. I guess that would be maybe Tijan Salon of 2024. In 2023, I feel like there wasn't a massive, I guess Bilal Coulibaly going as high as he did was a little shocking. Chet Howard going 11 was a little shocking as well. So I would say this year, somebody that I think could go higher than expected, Carter Bryant, but I think we're all warming up to potentially Carter Bryant going as high as maybe number 8 to Brooklyn. If Brooklyn is debating between Kaman Maluach or Derek Queen and Carter Bryant, they may go for the upside 4 of Bryant right now. Maybe he goes number 9 to Toronto, which I've mocked plenty of times, and I definitely think he can go number 10 to Houston. I think Noah Essengay can go very high as well. I don't know if the Pelicans would take him at 7. I don't think the Wizards would take him at 6, but Brooklyn could be interested in the high upside of Essengay for what he's done defensively at Ratio Farm. He measured in 6'10" without shoes. I think there's a chance he could go in the top 10 or at least the lottery. These guys there's a trend with these guys. They're lanky, they're solid defenders right now. And you hope that if they can be a consistent shooter in this league and fishing around the rim, they're turning into like 3-and-D studs as stretch 4s that can handle the rock. So I think those guys, I don't think Yegor Demon is going to really buy into that just because we saw how bad of a shooter Yegor Demon was this year at BYU. I think there's a little bit more what if in Noah Essengay's game, and somebody I'll say in a second. But I think Demon has that high upside just because he's 6'9". He has a 6'10" wingspan. So nothing crazy right there compared to his height. But yeah, he's incredibly tall for somebody that can handle the ball well. He can go high. I would say 2 other guys. It's the international thing, right? And then I'll give a college prospect that can go higher. But I would say Hugo Gonzalez is somebody that could end up going, I don't know if in the lottery, but what if he's called on the top 20? What if OKC stays at 16 and they see Hugo Gonzalez is 6'6", 220? He's an absolute beast of its like for his size as a teenager, and they're playing the what if game with him because he could be a fine enough defender, and he can use his strength and athleticism to get downhill, finish at the rim. They're like, okay, there's a true developmental project in this guy that isn't going to be the worst three-point shooter in the league, that if we can tweak his mechanics a little bit, give him a little bit more volume, and just set better screens from off ball, he can really be an elite 3-and-D guy one day. In that role. So I think him, like Joan Berenger, I know there's some character or motor concerns about Berenger, but like he can handle the ball very well at 6'10". He's athletic around the rim. There was like a Euro step clip. I was like, oh my God, I'm watching like, I don't even know Giannis at a time out there. So there is some appeal in Berenger. It's a lot of the what if game for these international guys, and even Ben Serif. But I would say Essengay. I think Carter Bryant is a college guy that can go a lot higher than expected. And then I would say like one other guy, Cedric Howard, that could end up going as high as like 11 to Portland, maybe 10 to Houston if they really love him. I don't know if they're working him out at the moment, but Cedric Howard also has a little bit of a what-if game to him, given that he only played 6 games in the 2025 season due to injury. He had very encouraging moments this year against weak competition, but had some good moments against solid competition last year at Eastern Washington. Great story, very similar measurements to Kawhi Leonard. So I think there's a what-if game in Coward. So I would say if there's one guy that I think is going to go in the top 10, that's not like consensus mocked in the top 10, it's Carter Bryant. And then I would say Noah Essengay, and then maybe Cedric Howard. And then I think guys like Joan Berenger, and then Hugo Gonzalez can also go a little bit higher than expected. Oh, and he also says who gets traded next besides Kevin Durant. It's tough to really figure that out right now, because where would Miami go if they don't get Kevin Durant? Where is like Toronto going to go? Where are some of these teams going to pivot to if they don't get KD? I just think some guys that have to get traded this offseason, I mean, I think it's Drew Holiday or Kristaps Porzingis. It's one of the Boston Celtics guys, because I think if maybe Houston, or like Dallas isn't in Kevin Durant talks, but I think after Kevin Durant gets traded and the market kind of quiets down a little bit and Giannis is staying in Milwaukee, I do think Boston is going to have a little bit of a fire sale, given that they are a second apron team and they want to get below that. So that could also mean like Isaac Okoro could get traded, or Orlando could look to trade Jonathan Isaac, given that these are some second apron teams at the moment. Gurman mentions here, do I think the Toronto Raptors should try to acquire a big name or see how the current core does going into the season? And how do I feel about Trae Young in Toronto? Oh man, Toronto's in a weird spot right now. I've said it for the last about a year that it's a weird roster. Not saying it's bad, not saying it's good. It's just weird. And I think they went out, got Brandon Ingram for 50 cents on the dollar, maybe even 20 cents on the dollar, given what he's worth. And that main asset was a 2026 Pacers pick that they're probably going to be pretty good again next year, right? So they give Ingram a 3-year, $120 million extension without him playing a single game for them. So I was really excited to watch Ingram play with Scotty and just see how that works with RJ Barrett. Because I think if we saw it not work out as efficient as they would have liked, RJ Barrett would have definitely been moved this offseason. But I think since there's like a what if, how can they work out, and we don't really know yet in meaningful games, that RJ Barrett could stay on this roster. Trae Young to Toronto is not a terrible idea. In a vacuum, like they could use a better playmaking, initiating point guard. I think Quickly's a little bit better off ball, and I think there's some better passers in this game than Quickly. Now, Quickly's a better defender than Trae Young, but I think you're trying to go a little bit more high upside. I think there's a chance Quickly, Barrett, Jakob Poeltl could all be moved this offseason. The Raptors have been linked in reports to Giannis and Kevin Durant. I wouldn't hate Kevin Durant in Toronto, given how wide open the East is next year. But if you're trading away RJ Barrett, Jakob Poeltl, and pick 9, not really a fan of that. That's a lot of depth for a 36-year-old, 37-year-old soon that won't even give you a 100% confirmation that he would re-sign with you. So I would stay off that idea. I think I would mainly run this team back. You're accumulating assets. Nobody's a free agent besides Jakob Poeltl until 2028. Jakob Poeltl has a $19.5 million player option in 27, so you can maybe think about doing something with Poeltl at the deadline if it comes to that, or there could be a sign and trade in in the 2026 offseason. But honestly, I would run most of this team back. I think Darko Rajakovic is a good head coach. They have pick number 9, so they're going to add a top 10 talent. Jacoby Walter got better in the second half. Mobo is a swingman defender. Jamal Shed is a point of attack defender. Grady Dick is a shooter. Agbaji's under contract for $6.3 million. This is a solid team. It's not a good team yet, but I would be intrigued about what they can do in the East if they're fully healthy, because they ended the season on a strong note. And I think right now, with where the East is, with where Boston is heading, with where Milwaukee is heading, and they're going to be kind of having gap retool years, I think there's a chance Toronto could be a top 6 seed in the Eastern Conference next year if they really believe in what they got. So I would not trade for Trae Young. I mean, if John Morant became available, I don't really love that idea either for where Toronto was building. I would just maybe wait for the next like really exciting name. Like what if in a year from now there's a Donovan Mitchell thing or there's a Devin Booker thing even more. Like you never know who could become available, or maybe Giannis actually becomes available in a year and maybe your 9th overall pick looks very intriguing in his rookie season, and now you don't have to give up as much as you would right now. So I think I would wait on Toronto. I wouldn't make a major move unless it's not going to cost you that much. The Twig mentions here, if Isaiah Evans stayed in the draft, what would have been your favorite fit for him? Yeah, I've talked about a lot. Isaiah Evans was one of my favorite players in this year's draft class. I thought in a draft class that didn't have a lot of good movement shooters. Now, Walter Clayton helped out his draft stock throughout March Madness, but with Alex Carabin going back to school, Pettiford, Philon, a lot of guys going back to school, Isaiah Evans at 6'6", needs to get a little bit stronger to be where he's at defensively, but I thought the competitive motor was there. There was a game where they were up by like 28 to UNC late in the year, and he's diving over loose balls left and right with Concanipple, and I think there's an extreme upside in Isaiah Evans' game, who only had 5 shots a night at Duke this past year, played around 14 minutes a night. He shot 41% from 3 and 81% from the free throw line. He moves so well without the ball in his hands, and at 6'6", maybe even 6'7", and if he can get a little bit stronger, put on a little bit more weight, he can be more physical downhill. I would have had Isaiah Evans as a fringe lottery pick. I had him there, and I would have loved him at number 16 to the Orlando Magic before they traded that pick. I think that's a team that needs movement shooting, and he moves a lot better than what Jed Howard would have been. I wouldn't even have minded him in Minnesota, in Memphis, in Washington if they moved Kispert this offseason, Brooklyn at 19. I would have definitely taken him in the teens upside-wise. And it's really fascinating to see where this NBA draft is going to be in the second round, because even some international guys withdrew, like Mohamed Faye, Nicolas Avladas, they are staying, or Ben Henschel, and they may go the college route. You have a bunch of guys I just mentioned in Philon, Pettiford, Evans, Caravan, but he's older. Who else? Otega Owe, Darian Williams, guys that would have been fringe first rounders are going back to school because they're getting a very comfortable NIL bag. Yaxel Lendenberg as well. So the second round is going to be fascinating. I will be live streaming both the first and the second round this year, and I'm excited for the second round because I think there's going to be some names that some even of like the most in-depth draft analysts have never heard of, given how wide open I think the second round is at the moment with all the top freshmen going back to school. BC mentions here for the Dallas Mavericks, do they need to sell their veteran pieces and build around Cooper Flagg for their future, or try to win next year in a competitive West? I think right now, like they were just given the life raft of the number 1 pick in the lottery. I think they could do both. I don't think they need to like trade away every single veteran on the roster. And I also don't think that they need to trade for other veterans right now. So like Anthony Davis is under contract for the next 2 years. Kyrie Irving, you would assume is going to get an extension in some way, shape, or form this offseason. He's got to opt out of that player option soon. Clay's under contract for the next 2 years. Caleb Martin under contract for the next 2 years, possibly 3 with the player option. Same with Max Christie. Marshall and Jaden Hardy under contract for the next 2 years. Hardy could be 3 years with the team option. Derek Lively's under contract for the next 2 years and also is a restricted free agent. The only 2 guys that they would have to think about moving this offseason are PJ Washington and Daniel Gafford. Now, those are proven players that have shown up in big moments in the playoffs where you'd be able to move them at the deadline. People would love a forward of PJ Washington's size and strength that could be that good of a defender in the playoffs for sure. And Gafford as a bruiser inside and a great rebounder and a screen setter. Teams would love that as well if you wanted to go that route. So they don't really need to trade one of these guys this offseason. I don't hate the idea. I would more so trade away PJ Washington because Cooper Flagg is going to be your 3 or your 4. He's going to play out there with AD at the 5. He's going to play out there at the 3 with AD at the 4 and Gafford and Lively at the 5. And then you have Caleb Martin, Najee Marshall, Max Christie, Klay Thompson, and Jaden Hardy is more of a 2. But you have a ton of wing depth at the moment that you don't really need PJ Washington next year. And I think you can find some value for PJ Washington on the open market. I think there's plenty of point guards or combo guards that you can add that can bridge the gap until Kyrie is back. What if there's a 3-team trade and PJ Washington goes somewhere and you can get Colin Sexton, you can get Malik Monk, you can get Lonzo Ball, you can get one of these point guards that can kind of bridge the gap. I love the idea of Lonzo Ball until Kyrie Irving is back. But you also can go out and sign somebody. They have full access, I believe, to their mid-level exception. If not, they could still get somebody on the biannual. Obviously, Ty Jerome would be a great ad for them. But what if they can also land just on the biannual, on the taxpayer exception, they can get somebody like a Chris Paul or a Spencer Dinwiddie back or a Dennis Schroeder or a Trey Jones who really played well for Chicago down the stretch. So I think there's a lot of different point guard options. It's a fairly deep point guard free agency class, not of stars, but of good enough players that can, like I said, bridge the gap until Kyrie Irving is back. You probably want to land 2 point guards this offseason. I like what I saw from Brandon Williams down the stretch last year, but I would like to add maybe a veteran. Maybe it is Chris Paul or Dinwiddie. Probably not Russ. But like, yeah, say you land Chris Paul or Dinwiddie, and you can also get like a Trey Jones. I would love that. Or you can land a Malcolm Brogdon or one of those guys. So that's what I would do. I don't know if I would trade Gafford. Like, he's so valuable, but you're not going to extend him because of Lively's extension soon and AD's massive contract and Kyrie's extension. I don't think they're going to extend Gafford because now you're really toying with the second apron fairly soon. But I don't think you're in a rush to trade him because, I mean, you could just play out next year with him. Why not? You can have incredible depth. He's going to want to make more money on the open market, and I don't blame him, but he's going to play hard to get that money, and he can help you win games. So, yeah, I think there's a chance that Dallas could go either way. I don't think they're going to trade Anthony Davis this offseason. Maybe if this year is a little bit more of a disaster record-wise, and they go 30-52, and Cooper Flagg looks like him, like legitimately a star already, maybe they would trade Anthony Davis or Kyrie Irving next offseason, but I think they want to see after the Luka trade, how they can contend next year, since last year they didn't even make the playoffs because of Kyrie's ACL tear and Anthony Davis's injury in his first game as a Dallas Maverick. Keegan mentions here for the Sacramento Kings, who should and will my Sacramento Kings get this offseason? They need a point guard badly, and I heard shopping in the neighborhood of Marcus Smart and Malcolm Brogdon. All right, so the Kings are in a very tough position right now, and this season was kind of a disaster in a way that they were so incredibly fun to watch in 2023. They were the 3 seed in a weaker Eastern Conference, or excuse me, West that year, but still a good team. They went to Game 7 against Golden State in round 1, and they lost that one. That was like insane Steph Curry Game 7, the Sabonis Green shot kind of mix up. And then in 2024, the Kings end up losing in the play-in tournament. And then here in 2025, the 2023 Coach of the Year, Mike Brown, and the 2023 Executive of the Year, Monte McNair, out the door. They both get fired. Fox hints that he's not going to re-sign with them in 2026, so they trade him 70 cents on the dollar for to the San Antonio Spurs for Zach LaVine, and he's kind of massive 2-year deal remaining at 30 years old. That's the only player they got back, which I thought was just a big failure for them because they got 2 seconds instead of the Hornets first, since it was lottery protected this year. They also got a first-round pick from the Timberwolves down the line, and they also got one of the Spurs first-round picks. None of those are the favorable picks there. They didn't even get their 2031 first-rounder from the DeRozan sign and trade in this deal. I don't know how that wasn't, like, the breaking point. That is like, all right, you're not getting Fox if you're not giving us our first-round pick back. How did they not get that done? I don't know. I guess Fox had less value on the open market. Maybe they really lost all the leverage. They got Jonas Valanciunas at the deadline as well, which I liked. But yeah, this team is at a crossroads. I would think about trading DeMar DeRozan. I would think about trading Malik Monk. I would think about trading almost everybody on this roster outside of Devin Carter. I would even think about trading Keon Ellis if you can get like a little, like, I don't know, like a really nice haul for Keon Ellis, because I think everybody knows how good of a defender he is and he needs more playing time. They don't have a bad top 7, but the West is getting a lot better. They don't own their first round pick. That's going to the Hawks from the Kevin Huerter trade. I would just explore the trade market. I think the only person that I would say has to go is DeMar DeRozan, since he's 36 years old. And he was good enough last year where I think there's some market. You can maybe get a late first rounder. You can maybe get a protected first rounder in the future. If Miami does not get Kevin Durant, would they want DeMar DeRozan? Would the Milwaukee Bucks want somebody that can help them next year with no draft capital? Would Phoenix want somebody that can help them next year with no draft capital? I think you could find a team that would want DeMar DeRozan. You just have to maybe not get as much back as you would like, but that's going to clear up about $25 million, 15% of your cap. You're going to have full access to the mid-level exception. I think there would be a robust market for Malik Monk. I mean, I would talk to Keegan Murray. If his agent is like, we want that Trey Murphy extension north of $25 million a year, I'm a little hesitant to give him that at 24 years old, who looks like he peaked in his rookie year. But the shots per game, I mean, they peaked in year 2. They went down last year. I would like to see more volume out of Keegan Murray. I think Zach LaVine, when he's healthy, can be one of the best shooting guards in the league. Not the best, maybe not top 4, but right outside of that, it's just he's kind of struggled to stay healthy at times. Sabonis is like a great offensive hub, but he's kind of shown that he can't really be a number 1 in the clutch, and it's tough to go to him when it matters the most like that. So I just feel like the Sacramento Kings are at a weird crossroads right now. I would make, honestly, Monk, DeRozan, Sabonis, and Levine available. I would take any offer for DeMar DeRozan at the end of the day, but I don't want to sell Sabonis and Levine for pennies on the dollar. I think a team could become desperate down the line, and I would just hope you're competitive next year. You do own your first round pick, so there isn't really a downside in missing the playoffs in that way, but you better hope that the lottery gods are on your side in the 26th draft. All right, number 7 here is going to come from random person. Do you think the Knicks should make any moves this offseason, or should they just run it back? Also, do you think the Knicks will find a good head coach, or will they end up regret firing Tibbs? Do you think the Knicks starting 5 will stay the same to start next season? So a lot of questions in this one. I want to start on the head coaching topic here. A lot of people were, I don't know if they're clowning the Knicks, maybe they are, for going out and trying to get Jason Kidd, Ime Udoka, Quinn Snyder, Billy Donovan, and I'm forgetting Chris Finch this offseason, who are under contract by their teams and getting denied. Why not do that? Every other team in the NBA right now has a head coach. So you're not competing with any team for Mike Malone, Taylor Jenkins, Mike Brown. You doing that is not making you miss out on one of those guys because they're going to get poached by a different team. The worst they could say is no. You're just asking for an interview. You're not saying like, here's 4 first-round picks, like, you're going to take this. No, you're just asking for an interview, and then you'd work out some type of trade. Worst thing they could say is no. Most of those guys are better than the free agent coaches on the market. I would have honestly called the Golden State Warriors for Kerr. I would have called the Heat for Spoelstra. I would have called, I don't know, who's another elite coach in this league? Why am I blanking on, like, you can even call the Indiana Pacers for Rick Carlisle, right, at this point. So I don't hate the Knicks doing that whatsoever. I would like them to get their head coach finalized before the draft so they can have some type of say in who they want to draft. I think you want to have some cohesion there between Leon Rose and the next guy. And I don't think they're going to regret firing Tibbs. I could see the Knicks, what if they're 9-8 to start next year's season? It's like, all right, should have fired or shouldn't have fired Tibbs. But if you remember when the Knicks were going to maybe think about firing Tibbs after the 22 season before Brunson came, the Knicks got off to a bad start in Brunson's first year in New York, or just not the best start in the world. And then they went on a little bit of a winning streak. This was a loss to the Dallas Mavericks by 21 points in Brunson's game against them. The Knicks, that was game 23 of the season. And then the Knicks basically went on a 8-game winning streak after that. And it's like, okay, Tibbs can be here for a while now. So it's just going to come ebbs and flows, and you got to be patient with these guys. I think they're going to mostly run it back. I don't think they're going to trade Bridges. Unless he's not going to sign the extension, then I think they could actually trade Bridges. That's going to be a big moving point. I don't think they're going to trade Cat. I don't think they're going to get a great return for Karl-Anthony Towns given his contract. I think they're going to make more on the margin moves. They have access to their biannual exception of $6 million. I could see the Knicks trying to get a point guard or a wing. Maybe they end up with a Spencer Dinwiddie. Maybe they end up with a Luke Kennard. Maybe they get a big like a Trey Lyles. I think it's going to be something like that. I don't think they're going to make any other trades. I think they want to run most of this team back, seeing that the East is wide open. They're in the Eastern Conference. And maybe if they don't blow that game 1 like they did, they're playing in the NBA Finals. So I do think the starting 5 is going to stay the same. This one is from King Goku. He says, how did you become a Knicks fan? I think the final 3 here are all a little bit more personal. This one's pretty easy to say and pretty obvious. I'm from New York. I'm from Long Island. So me and my dad started to go to Knicks games when I was 5 and 6 years old. I started watching a god-awful Knicks team. I wish somehow the 90s and the 2000s were reversed, because my dad always says, and anybody in New York, the Knicks basketball in the 90s was something special when you're watching Pat Riley and Jeff Van Gundy coach these teams with Patrick Ewing and Larry Johnson, Charlie Ward, Allen Houston, all these guys out there. Who am I forgetting? There's the one guy, John Starks, duh. And they were in the NBA Finals in 94. They were in the NBA Finals in 99. They were in the conference finals in 2000. And they were also in the conference finals in 93. I became a Knicks fan I could pull it up. I became a Knicks fan at the end of 05. They went 33 and 49. So I became a Knicks fan full on 06 season. They went 23 and 59. My first 5 years watching the Knicks, they didn't win over 33 games, which is pretty embarrassing. Then 2011, they go 42 and 40 with Amari Stoudemire. They trade for Melo. They go 54 and 28 and 13. It was an aging roster. And 2014 to 2021, basically, I lost a lot of love for the Knicks during that time. Derek Fisher, Jeff Hornacek, Phil Jackson, obviously, David Fizdale, Kurt Rambis. There was a lot of bad publicity with the Knicks. It was some dark times. So that makes me appreciate Tibbs and what the Knicks have been over the last 5 years, because not a lot of people can remember that. Obviously, you started watching basketball recently, how bad it was, and watching Larry Brown and Isaiah Thomas coach these teams. So my favorite Knicks growing up were Jamal Crawford, Nate Robinson, David Lee. I appreciated Melo. Jeremy Lin was a very fun time. Steve Novak. But yeah, watching Carmelo Anthony's like final days here, Enes Kanter, Kristaps Porzingis was kind of like a new light, and you got excited. The Knicks, I think in the 2017 season, were pretty good around like December, and then Kristaps tears his ACL, or 2018 season. Either way, the Knicks have been very bad in my lifetime. This by far the best time as a Knicks fan. Back-to-back 50-win seasons, and hopefully it is 3 straight next year. Hector says, if I could move anywhere in the world, where would it be and why? So I assume anywhere. That's not where I am. I live in Philadelphia. I would like to move to New York City for a year just to experience it, being from Long Island in New York. So I would say if I had to go anywhere else, like outside of New York City, I'll say in the United States, I've had really good time in Boston. Boston's a very nice city. Chicago's a very nice city as well. I don't know if I would ever move to like California, but I will say like the Los Angeles, San Diego weather on another planet. I can definitely get used to that. So I do like it in the Northeast. I like just taking Amtrak up and down. There's a lot of just kind of cities and different things you can do here. Although the winters do suck sometimes. I would say anywhere in the world now. It's probably a little embarrassing how little I've been outside of the United States. I've been to Toronto. I've been to Vancouver / Whistler. I've been to Cancun, Mexico. And recently, for the first time back in April, I went to Europe for the first time. So I got to hit Seville, Spain. It was beautiful. Sevilla, I guess you could say. Rome, I hit typical tourist spot. Naples, hit Positano. Beautiful spots. I don't know if I can go anywhere in the world. Like you hear great way of living in some European countries, some Asian countries. I don't really know if I would ever want to live anywhere outside the United States just because of like the time difference. As someone that loves sports too, you're watching those at different times and you're on a different time than anyone else. If you threw that out of the window though, I know Positano was beautiful. Because you're like right on the water. It's crazy over there. But I just haven't been to a lot of places. So I guess I could say somewhere I've never been. Australia seems really cool. Japan seems really cool. But I don't really know. Honestly, I think I just got to go to more places and I could figure that out. Because right now my answer would be very lame and it would be, I don't know. Maybe it would just be like La Jolla, San Diego or something like that, given how nice the way of living is out there with the weather and the beach and everything like that. And then One Too Many Card says, when is the wedding? Yeah, I did post it a lot on like Twitter and Instagram, or I just posted on each one and some community tabs. I did get engaged 2 weeks ago. It was on June 7th. So yeah, I don't know if there's going to be a day for the wedding anytime soon. Got to look at wedding venues and everything like that. It's just another added wrinkle into all of this, and you got to just kind of look at venues, figure out what type of flowers, band, DJ. I'm really excited for those conversations, saying that sarcastically. It's gonna be an interesting summer with that, but yeah, it's wild for people that kind of like reached out. I'm like, I've been watching you since like you were 14, 15, 16. Well, I started when I was 15. So 15, 16, 17 doing this. And now it's like, okay, I'm 25 years old now and I'm getting engaged. So yeah, it is kind of wild that I'm at that point in my life. I did feel a little bit older. And I get the Unk comments a lot. I guess Unk is 25 years old. So yeah, I'm at that point. But yeah, hit one of the milestones in life, right? Like you get engaged, you're getting married. It's kind of crazy. And I still can't believe it as well. I still feel like I'm a little immature for somebody at my age. So yeah, I'm just getting older and it is wild to like look back at some of my videos, some like my haircuts, some of my outfits. And I'm like, wow, that used to be me about 8 years ago in high school. And now here I am at 25 years old. So that's gonna be for me. Hope you guys did enjoy this episode of the Just Ballin' Podcast. A little bit different. Just the mailbag episode. If you guys like this, I definitely would like to do this maybe a little bit more often. So make sure you are subscribed on YouTube so you can, get the community post notifications and you can see when I just asked you for your questions. If you guys did enjoy on YouTube, appreciate you dropping a thumbs up. Let me know in the comments what you guys think. And if you're listening on Apple Podcasts and Spotify, really appreciate a rating and review over there as well. I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace.